Welcome in everybody to Fantasy Pros MLB. There's one thing everybody loves, and that's a good league winner. So Joe Orrico and I, Joe Pisapia, are going to sit here and talk about four guys that Joe Orrico really likes this year that have the potential to win you your fantasy baseball leagues in 2026. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 30,000 this year. We can do it with your help. Of course, we love your comments. We love when you ring the bell till it goes ding, and subscribe to the audio feed of Fantasy Pros MLB as well. Joe Orrico, the first guy we're going to talk about, is a Boston Red Sox and a player that I think is being a little undervalued. A couple years ago, kind of burst onto the scene, had some pop, had some speed, get a little of everything here. And I feel like in the mix of all the chaos of the Red Sox the last 2 years, is kind of lost in the shuffle. So let's talk about Jarren Duran, what he could do for folks in 2026 in fantasy.
It's true. Boston's had a lot going on. They brought in Garrett Crochet. They traded Devers. They have Roman Anthony, one of the best prospects in baseball. And no one really cares about Jarren Duran anymore, a guy who was a second-round pick last year, an early second-round pick in a lot of rooms, like a top 20 player, and justifiably so, I think. Now, he had a poor year, but it was still 86 runs, 84 ribbies, 24 steals, 16 homers. So poor year, I guess, is relative. He was still very good. He was still very productive, almost 700 plate appearances. And now you're getting him in the 70s. And that's kind of the basis of this. You're getting a guy who hasn't changed at all fundamentally. He's 29 years old now. And, you know, that's generally peak years, 27 to 30-ish, like we mentioned on another show that you guys can check out on the channel. But his barrel rate was 9.7% last year, best of his career. 46% hard hit rate, best of his career. Exit velocities, average and max, were both the best of his career. It's a good ballpark. It's a really fun lineup. I think Jarren Duran feels like a baseline guy for 15 home runs, 25 stolen bases with a decent batting average, and a hell of a lot of counting stats in the middle of that lineup. But 50 picks cheaper than last year for no real reason other than maybe the counting stats weren't as loud as they were in 2024.
Yeah, and if we're going by that age range thing, that explains why Joe Orrico is in his prime, and I am well past it, obviously. He is 65 right now overall in the consensus ADP on Fantasy Pros, and I'm with you. I think going back to last year, I know the batting average down a little bit, but 257 in 2025. You go back to 2024, 285, 295 in 2023. So this is a player, you know, the batting average ceiling is higher. So a little bit better luck on the BABIP side, a little bit better year from Jarren Duran, I think could certainly be in store. The next guy we're going to talk about is another one. This guy's in a new place, though. Hit 20 homers last year. He's going to qualify at a few positions to start the year and probably add first base at some point, you would hope, by the time we cross from April into May. And that's Jorge Polanco, now of the New York Mets. Now, he could be more of a DH. We don't know. He might be the starting first baseman. We've seen Vientos and Beatty over there. But it seems like Polanco at some point will play some games at first base. Now, when he qualifies there, again, tough to figure out. My guess is by early May, we do cross that threshold. But it's not just the eligibility, which makes him appealing to me. Joe, it's also the fact that he's got some power and he's hitting in a Mets lineup with some guys in front of him. I know Lindor's got the hamate bone issue. Eventually, we hope that, you know, he kind of regains form. We know it takes a little while for that, but you've still got Juan Soto, you got Bo Bichette, and then Polanco is slated to hit somewhere in that 4, 5, 6 area. Like, there's going to be some guys ahead of him to drive in.
It seems likely, and I got some pushback on a short on the channel that I did recently about Polanco hitting cleanup. I don't know who else is going to hit cleanup for this team. It's probably not going to be Simeon. He's not a typical cleanup guy.
No.
I could see it maybe being Lou Bob or Alvarez, but I currently agree with what Fangraphs has laid out that Polanco is going to hit fourth after what he did last year. I mean, maybe it's fallen under the radar based on his draft price this year, but 26 home runs, he stole 6 bases, he hit 265, drove in 78 runs, and he did it in what is probably the worst ballpark in all of baseball to hit in. If you look at StatCast park factors, 100 being average, they had a 91 park factor in Seattle last year. The next worst was 97, which doesn't sound like a huge difference. It's a big difference. 9% worse than average if you're talking hitting as a whole. If you're just talking about home runs, Seattle is also terrible, 93 park factor overall. Now, in New York, where the Mets play at Citi Field, is not amazing, 98 park factor overall. But if you're looking at just the home run factor, it's 104. All this to say, it's 11% better for hitting home runs at Citi Field than it is at T-Mobile Park. This is a guy who's coming off of a 26 home run season, who has a previous 33 home run season just 4 years ago. Jorge Polanco, I don't understand the price. He is, of all my drafts, of all the positions, my most drafted player this year. I have him on 60% of my teams. I think that he is going to be a mid-20s home run guy who gives you 60-some-odd runs, close to 80 ribbies with an upside for more in that lineup spot. And a guy who has been a good average hitter in his career. He's a 263 career hitter, 265 last year, multi-position eligible, outside the top 200 picks. Everything seems to be pointing up for Polanco. Now, there is some injury risk with his history, but at pick 230, if it doesn't work out, you can easily drop him.
I like the point you made too, because I think that he does hit cleanup at least to start the year.
Yeah.
Alvarez or Luis Robert would have to get very hot in order to get into that kind of spot. And I'm not saying that's not impossible. I think those are two good candidates there. Simeon's not. I don't think at this stage in his career he's a cleanup hitter. But if Alvarez realizes potential, or if Robert all of a sudden starts to just hit gangbusters, you could absolutely see him moving up to a 4 spot too, potentially in that lineup. But that would be a slow play also, because they have already said that, they're taking it easy with him. He's another guy that's missed a lot of time. So Polanco, I think, is a really interesting addition here. Before we get to 2 more names on Joe's list, I want to tell everybody too, if you want to level up your fantasy baseball draft prep, the Fantasy Pros Mock Draft Simulator is for you. Complete realistic mock drafts in just minutes. No waiting in between picks. Tailor your mock drafts to your league-specific settings, including roster configurations and scoring systems. Receive instant feedback and draft grades to refine your strategy, and you can get a competitive edge over all your league mates. Prepare confidently to dominate your fantasy drafts with the Mock Draft Simulator, only at fantasypros.com/draftwizard, or just download the app. All right, next up here, one of my favorite things, JJ Wetherholt. Oh, I love me some JJ Wetherholt. Last year, 109 games between Double and Triple A. The Slash Joe, 306, 421, 510, an OPS of 931. That is elite level stuff. The kid makes contact. He's got pop. I love his approach. I love everything about him. It's just a matter of where he starts. And I do think he does start this year coming out of the gate here in spring training. Even if he doesn't, I agree with you. I think he's got league winning potential in him. But why do you think he could be that in 2026?
It's very rare for me to highlight a prospect. I usually leave that to the Welshes of the world because he follows it a lot more than I do. But with a guy like JJ Wetherholt, it feels really obvious that he is going to be up, even if it's not to start the year, that it won't take long for them, because St. Louis, what they're trotting out right now, oh my goodness, Joe. They actually said something yesterday that they have this new ballpark deal for $29, like all you can eat at the ballpark. That's what happens when the team looks like this. You need to incentivize people to come to the park somehow, and they're going to do that with free or cheap beers. And with JJ Wetherholt, I think a guy who could easily, maybe not easily, but feasibly go 2020 as a rookie, a guy who probably will not lack for playing time, and a guy who on a lot of sites already has double or even triple eligibility. You might get second, third, and short from him. There was a poll we put out on the Fantasy Pros Twitter account yesterday. This is kind of the year of the shortstop prospect. Which guy are you targeting? Connor Griffin, JJ Wetherholt, Kevin McGonigal. And they were all within a couple percentage points of each other, with JJ Wetherholt drawing the fewest votes of the bunch. I don't really understand it. If you look at where he's going, whether it's high stakes leagues or casual leagues, if you look at our Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings, he's at 266. The guys around him are Spencer Steer, a guy who's probably going to be in a bench role to start the year, Nolan Shanuel, who's not terribly exciting, Miguel Vargas, who's a decent, do a little bit of everything guy in a bit of a poor lineup, but not as much upside as JJ Wetherholt. You got an injury risk in DeLauder, Brett Beatty, Jose Caballero. In this type of range of ECR, Wetherholt feels like the most exciting guy with the most upside as well. That team being bad, it works against him in one way for the counting stats, but it does mean, or it should mean, that he shouldn't lack for playing time. I think we could see a 2020 season from Wetherholt, and especially if you're able to put him at second base, which sucks, you're going to be doing yourself a favor.
I agree 100%. I think that's one of the best ones we're going to talk about. Now, the next one's a guy, another deep one here. He's going as the 231st player overall right now in drafts. And the guy who's got not one, but multiple 100 RBI seasons. He's got multiple 30 home run seasons. Adolis Garcia, now with the Philadelphia Phillies. So 3190 back in 2021, then 27,100, 39,107, then 25 homers, 85 RBI in 2024. And then in 2025, things really fell off even more. 19 home runs, 75 RBI. Now, he's still stealing bases, too. 13 last year. We know the batting average is going to hurt back-to-back years in the 220s. But maybe a change of scenery. Smaller ballpark, too. Very home run-friendly environment there in Philadelphia. So all that points to Adolis Garcia being one of these guys that if he should rebound, he could make a big impact in fantasy this year.
Yeah, Texas has been a pretty poor park for right-handed hitters the last few years. The 25th ranked park in all of baseball. And now Citizens Bank Park isn't a ton better, but it's the 19th ranked park. So you're getting at least a slight upgrade there. The thing with me, we did a show that's going to be on the channel talking about projections that you guys should check out. And the projections for Adolis Garcia are phenomenal. It doesn't really matter which system you look at. You can even take the most conservative system, which looks like the bat: 23 home runs, 11 steals, and a 232 batting average. If you're getting 23 and 11 around pick 250, that's phenomenal. I'm sorry. You're getting that, and usually the top 200 or top 150 picks you're going for the 20 and 10 guys. And, I'm a big Brian Reynolds, Ian Happ fan this year. That's that same type of production that you're hoping for, with probably a lower batting average from Garcia, but just dirt cheap. I think people have kind of given up on him. He was a guy that it took a few years for people to come around on. Was he legit in 21? Was he legit in 22? People eventually came around in 23, and then he kind of fell off a little bit of a cliff, but still not super old. It's actually his 33rd birthday today as we're recording this. He's still really good defensively, and Philadelphia seems to prioritize or want to prioritize their outfield defense. So I think Garcia is going to play, and I think the upside here could be 25 home runs, 15 steals, and yeah, the batting average might not be great, but let's say he does play 140 games. You're possibly getting like 85, 90 RBI from him as well in what is still a pretty good lineup. So another guy like Polanco, maybe it doesn't work out. It's not a guarantee for sure, but they're being drafted in a range where if it doesn't work out, you're dropping most of those guys anyway. How many of your 18th through 25th round picks are going to be on your team the entire year? Maybe one or two of them. You take an upside chance on a guy who has had massive fantasy seasons in the past. If it doesn't work out, you can wash your hands in the first couple of weeks and pick up a hot waiver wire pickup.
Well, it's funny, Joe, because he's going back-to-back in terms of ADP with Trent Grisham, who never had a 30 home run season until last year. So you want to put your money on Trent Grisham to repeat or Adolis Garcia to rebound?
I think Grisham is really benefited by the ballpark and his approach, really pull-heavy approach. I could see it, but again, if you're looking at like the entire track record of both players, Garcia has more fantasy goodness in him with the power speed, with the line. I think the lineups are probably relatively close. Maybe the Yankees are a little bit better because Judge just, accounts for so much production. But I think the Yankees lineup maybe isn't as balanced as the Phillies. I think it's a reasonable question. I'm more of a sucker for Garcia, but I think Grisham is reasonable bet to have another 25, 30 home run season, and he's kind of forgotten about a little bit this year.
All right, there you have it, everybody. Those are 4 names there. Who are your league winners in 2026? Drop your comments below. Subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 30,000, and that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Joe Orrico, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.